Clearswift, and this afternoon I'm going to be going through the concepts of cyber crime through the eyes of what happens. So, let me just crack on. So, the statement, the cyber threats of 2016 was the year when sooner or later became now. It was almost weekly that we saw the threats hitting organizations, not only NHS, local authorities, but actually quite high security organizations as well. So it's everyone can be affected by these threats. So how the evolution of ransomware attacks have occurred. So all of a sudden, they become monetized. The ability to create money out of these ransomware attacks and other threats have become more prevalent. And so, in simple terms, it became more profitable for these organizations or actors in order to monetize the threats themselves. We had the targeting, where it was anyone and everyone. Nobody was immune. And what we were seeing on the targeting of the threats were everything from data harvesting to medical information to credit card information, to understand how can they actually extract even more money from these people or organizations themselves. And then the variety of the attack payloads themselves. We saw a huge increase in email attachments, web downloads, whether it's your drive-by browsing, the activity hijacking, down to the desktop where reprogramming USBs. These were all the different mechanisms of how these ransomware attacks are occurring. So, the threats are getting more and more clever. It's working out what they need to be doing in order to evade the standard threats, detection technologies that are in place. So, it's looking at things like virtual environments as well as just pieces of tin. It's looking at the operating systems as normal. It's looking at browser versions. So, as fast as the browser vendors are patching it, sometimes that's only once a month, in which case that's a window of opportunity for the threats. Timing. So extended sleep is where you're looking at time-released threats, where it will bypass all scanning technology capabilities and will only trigger on a very particular day in a very particular month in order for it to actually run. This means that it's flying past things like your sandboxing technologies and standard antivirus threats capabilities. The human elements, so from the social engineering side of things, so the mouse clicks, the scrolling, these are all the mechanisms of how the threats are getting through to the organizations. And now we've got the masking, so encrypting the data, the code morphing, so it's constantly changing so that the antivirus can never catch up in order to detect it. So this is a very new statistic that we've now seen that email is the most prevalent mechanism of how the ransomware is being distributed around the world. Web is still quite high, but the main concern and focus today is actually email. So the threat lifecycle, as I said earlier, because the threats and ransomware have been monetized, it's actually becoming in line with software development, which means there's more focus on the software development of the ransomware so that it becomes even harder to detect the threats through antivirus technologies, your sandboxing technologies, and it is becoming a malware as a service as well. So it's faster to be morphed and faster to evade detection. So the executing of attacks. I'm just going to go through a couple of examples, and some of them are actually quite scary as to how quick some of these attacks can occur. So one of the main examples are the Dridex examples, which is where an email comes in to an organization. It has an attachment. This is nothing new, but the main difference is it has a trusted file type. Whether that file type should be trusted or not is a different matter, but the concept is we're looking at PDF files, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents. These are normally trusted files, and users who aren't security focused or aware are more likely to open these sorts of files. The files get to the user, the Dridex loader downloads additional DLL files onto the system, and all of a sudden that PC, that laptop has been compromised. It's now become a botnet for network and command and control details, and then all this stolen information is sent to the command and control servers. So utilizing a trusted file type has become the threat. We've now seen these web attacks as well, what's called drive-by web attacks, where the users are going to normal standard websites that everyone accepts that is an acceptable behavior, going to Amazon, Twitter, Facebook, and the main fundamental problem is that on the left or right-hand panes you have these adverts, which have less control. And so all of a sudden those websites and the adverts can have the JavaScript, and then automatically gets downloaded onto the laptop, and the browser has now been affected. Or it can be rerouted to a malware server where the malware is then automatically downloaded. These drive-by web attacks, I believe the BBC did some testing and found out that they can be compromised within 30 seconds of being on a normally trusted website. So another mechanism is DNS poisoning, so where the browser is then routed to a website that looks like the original website, but actually it's been a fake website, and then they put their username and password in, and all of a sudden their information has been compromised. And probably the worst thing that you can see on a computer is the crypto locker, telling you you've got some time in order to give them some money. How do these actors plan an attack? How do they identify how they're going to compromise an organization, whether it's a single user or an entire organization? The main point is data harvesting. So this is where information is leaked from an organization, correctly or incorrectly. So in the passive leak, we're looking at information around the document properties within their website, which I'll cover off shortly. But these are automatic email and web data leaks of files, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets that are then being harvested. You've then got the active harvesting, which is the hacking into organizations, compromising a web server, a forward-facing web server that then pulls data out of, for example, a CRM system, and then that data can be sold on the dark web or used straight away in order to attack an organization. So all of a sudden, this could be a year, 2 years down the line from the data being extracted or harvested from the organization or the staff, and then they're being targeted for those attacks. So what are they looking for? So we're looking at vulnerabilities. So the software itself that's being used, very simply you can look at the CVE website for known vulnerabilities, the network itself, so folders, local folders, network folders. It's looking for employees, usernames, PC names, which is then being used in social websites such as Facebook, LinkedIn. These are the sorts of pieces of information that the data harvesters are using in order to make their attacks more effective. Directly, it's looking for PII data and metadata within emails, documents, websites themselves, where people forget perhaps there's metadata within documents that could contain quite sensitive information inadvertently being leaked from the organization. Infrastructure information, like I say, is 101 is websites. It's not even an active scan, it's a passive scan, just being able to download all publicly available information from a website, and then looking at the user information, the folders, the printers, the software that those users are being that have access to. What does it look like? For example, we can use a little tool called Fokker, which just points to a website, downloads all publicly available information, and this example on the screenshot is the gov.uk website. And you can see that there were over 1,900 files, and we've got 1,200 users, 1,800 folders, we've got printers, we have software, direct email addresses. So it becomes even easier for these attackers to start targeting individual users in order to compromise that PC, either install crypto lockers, steal information from those PCs as required. As I say, using this sort of information around users, it becomes a lot easier and more effective when looking at LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter in order to identify what makes people tick. What is going to make someone actually open a PDF? Bearing in mind PDFs are generally trusted anyway. And so very simply, with a bit of information of a friend of that person, what their interests are, their user is going to more likely open that file, that PDF, in order to be compromised. Printers. A lot of people aren't aware of the fact that network printers, they're basically PCs on your network. But how many organizations install anti-malware, antivirus on these printers? So the concept is, this is a network printer, and a pen testing company has installed Doom, which is quite simply an executable. But the concept is, well, if I can install a little game, what else can I install on that PC, printer? It wouldn't take a huge amount of coding in order to install a little application that means that every single document goes to that printer, a copy is then sent out. You could control certain aspects of that using the firewall, but they may not be as effective as an application filter. As I said right at the beginning, it's becoming not if, but when. These attacks are occurring, they are being effective, and in this example we saw the Lincolnshire Hospital. They were having to turn people away, so patients, they had to cancel operations because their entire network, computer network, was brought down by these network attacks. Websites that, again, are very generally trusted, including BBC. The moment you're outside the UK, obviously the geofencing means that that BBC website can actually have adverts. And all of a sudden, those adverts on the BBC website become ransomware and malvertising, and those websites that are normally trusted are becoming hijacked to create these, download these crypto lockers and ask for money. So, as I say, it's not if, it's when. It's what happens when an attack occurs. What's the cleanup? Well, the first thing that generally happens is it's an entire network lockdown. As the example of the hospital in Lincolnshire, they had to lock everything down in order to understand where did it occur, what's going to happen if we just turn it back on and start cleaning up one or two PCs. The problem, of course, is it will perpetuate onto other PCs, and so it's an investigation initially to understand what machines have been affected. Once that's been identified and those machines have been removed from the network, then it becomes time-consuming in order to understand, right, well, we need to back everything up, restore from a backup. Bearing in mind, of course, those backups could be a few hours out of date. It could be 8 hours out of date, depending on the backup structure. We've then got the cost of the actual restoring. So certain backups and restores actually charge you for the restoring of the data opposed to just the backup of the data. You then have a direct business disruption. As I say, in the example of the NHS, they had to cancel operations. They had to turn sick people away from their organization because they were in no fit state to actually continue the business. This is a normal sort of aspect of sort of SP, the fact that anything critical occurring to a business, whether it's a flood, whether it's a fire, will have a massive negative impact to an organization. And they believe that in the case of a massive outage, it can cripple a business to the tune that they go out of business. You have a financial loss of actually being able to transact, do business. You then all of a sudden have a loss of trust and reputation, not only with your clients, but also your partners, your suppliers. And all of a sudden you think, do I really want to do business with an organization that has been compromised from a security standpoint? Maybe not, but it becomes more problematic to do business. And then you've actually got your investigation time in order to understand, how did that happen? How do we stop that happening in the future? So, with Clearswift and Foursys, we can understand how to stop attacks striking. Clearswift has been in the application security market for the best part of 30 years. It was kind of 1985, we developed our first deep content inspection engine. And everyone says, yeah, we can do deep content inspection, but it's that ability to not just look at an email and the subject or the header or the body, but actually what's in the attachment. What's in the attachment of the attachment? So in this example, we're looking at a zip file that obviously contains a document, a PDF. Obviously within the document, we've got other files embedded, so text, JPEGs. We've got an Excel within a doc that actually contains an Excel spreadsheet. It could be a macro within that Excel spreadsheet that causes that threat to kick into the organization. And Clearswift has that ability to drill down into each and every component to identify, is that acceptable? Is it safe to allow to the user? Whether it's an email, whether it's a web transaction. And so that deep content inspection engine, we can go down to 200 levels. To be perfectly honest, I've never had to increase it to more than 50, which is our default, but we have that ability to understand true binary data, in which case we're looking at not what the file is called, but actually the signature byte pattern in order to understand, is that acceptable? Is that safe to traverse across that boundary? Like say, regardless of whether it's an SMTP email boundary, whether it's a web boundary, we're able to truly identify that data. We can even look down into the subcomponents within, for example, a Word document to look at the headers, the footers, and the document properties, going back to the risk of the data harvesting. So how can Clearswift help? So we have an ecosystem. What that enables us to do is we have a very varied approach to how we deploy our solutions in order to protect organizations. We can put all our software on servers, we can install it on virtual environments, whether it's VMware, Hyper-V, we can host them in the cloud, whether it's Azure, AWS, partner cloud. We have that ability to deploy it in multiple locations. That enables us to protect at an email level, just standard SMTP. We can protect the internal to internal threats, the insider threats, where you may have partners, you may have third parties, you may have contractors that are a risk within the organization itself that accesses data or sends data internally that can cause the ransomware. The most common risk is, of course, users having laptops, going home, connecting to their broadband connection, and having the drive-by threat. And all of a sudden, that's not going to be triggered until it's connected back into the corporate network, in which case it can start firing that threat within the organization. At Clearswift, we have a mantra of not just ripping and replacing. We recognize that organizations may have had a huge investment into an existing email or web technology, and there wasn't the appetite or the requirement to remove that particular technology, in which case we're able to add to an existing deployment. So we're able to plug into systems such as Blue Coat or F5 or Cisco using an ICAP integration to be able to add technology that those partners don't have the capability to do the scanning. Same principle with ARgon. It enables us to have a security product into the organization without having to rip and replace an existing hygiene solution. And using our ecosystem, we have that ability to protect multiple organizations regardless of whether they're using O365, Gmail, cloud protection, and also things like Twitter and social media. So how do we protect the key business collaboration? So regardless of how the mail is coming in, it could be coming in through Google Mail, it could be going through O365, we're able to protect and scan that data as it's coming in. If it's an on-premise exchange, we can then add another layer of protection. The email gateway has that ability to identify active code as it's passing through the system, and instead of just blocking the whole communication, we are able to remove just the active content, regardless of whether it's good active code or bad active code. We can remove it and allow the email as well as the attachment to the user. This is no longer a standard stop and block approach, which all our competitors have. With email, we have that ability to hold a copy of that message, and if required and there is a trust level, we can release a non-redacted version of the active code to the user if actually required. And on the way out or coming in, we've got the web approach, which enables us, whether it's our secure web gateway or a ICAP integration, to be able to scan the data being uploaded or downloaded, regardless of whether it's HTTP or HTTPS. We can actually then look at the data and protect the organization from the point and click of the threats. The drive-bys are no longer a threat. Okay. So, closing the gaps with the infrastructure, with the ARgon, as I say, it enables us to have an SMTP solution without ripping and replacing your existing hygiene solution itself. And so we have two aspects. We have a document sanitization, which is actually addressing and dealing with the preventative approach. So we are removing the risk around data harvesting. And then we have the structural sanitization, which is looking at the active code and actually is the enforcement point. So even if the data harvesting has occurred, we can actually stop that ransomware attacks, the targeted attacks, by removing that active content and delivering just the attachment, Word document, Excel, PowerPoint, to the user without the threat. So it plugs into the existing infrastructure. We can actually have this for ARgon for email. The secure ICAP gateway is basically the same, so we're plugging it into an existing technology, force point, like say Bluecoat, F5, Cisco, Barracuda, basically any technology proxy that uses an ICAP integration. We have the ability to have central management. So if you have one product or multiple products, they can all talk to each other. And so through one single user interface across multiple boundaries, you can have a unified policy regardless of which protocol you're looking at. The non-disruptive deployment enables us to put these solutions in place in initially monitor mode so that we're not affecting live business mail or web traffic, but enables us to identify, well, what would the system have done without actually causing any disruption. It then enables us to identify, right, is there a problem? If there is, how big of a problem is this? And does the business have an appetite to actually address these problems? So very simply, the structural sanitization within our solutions, email and web, has that ability to identify that active content and remove just that active content from the attachments, and then allows the rest of the communication through. It is both directions. It was designed originally around inbound, but actually on an outbound point of view from a financial organization or any organization that uses financial analysts, for example. They may be creating quite clever macros within Excel spreadsheets, which actually is intellectual property. And if that analyst decides to move and go to a competitor, you wouldn't want that data leaking from the organization. And so we can strip that out as it leaves the organization as well. And the document sanitization, which prevents the data harvesting, whether it's email or web. So if an organization has a reverse proxy using Bluecoat, we can actually hook into that, and as the data is being pulled out from the web server, we can actually strip that document properties and revision history from those files without having to go into each and every file and manually clean them down. You can then have a process that any new data that's going to these web servers are cleaned at point of going into the web server. So it can become a cleaning exercise as well. We are aware that obviously with revision history and document properties, users have the ability to do this manually. They can go in, set the document as final, they can start cleaning that metadata and the document properties out, but we're all human. We're asking our users to do more with less, and therefore all of a sudden we can just automate this whole process so the user doesn't have to worry. So once that data has gone through our solution, we've cleaned that out and everything's good. Superb. That was 30 minutes. I do have one question. I actually have two questions. Bear with me a second. So the name of the tool I used for the data harvesting is called FOCA. FOCA. I'm not allowed to type. Okay, so it's FOCA. It's, like I say, freely available. No problem with that. And if you are interested, I can actually run that tool for your organization, and I can put it in a report for you, or I can teach you how to run the tool. So when is ARgon for Web available is another question. In simple terms, we are looking at using sort of secure ICAP gateway as web for ARgon for Web. The web gateway itself could be a upstream or downstream proxy. There are sort of certain things you need to look at for authentication, HTTPS inspection, but we can, if you are looking to just use our products for the redaction, the sanitization, we can put a very competitive pricing together if that's just what you're looking for. Okay. Any plans for a reverse proxy to protect documents hosted on an internal web server, presented externally? So at the moment we do not have a reverse proxy ourselves. This is again where we did have a reverse proxy many years ago. Nobody actually bought it. So we are looking to partner with organizations such as F5 and Bluecoat, who are kind of industry leaders in that arena, and that's again where our secure ICAP gateway partners perfectly with those organizations. We work very closely with F5, and they put our solution in place as part of their solutions going forward. What OS versions is this application for? So the operating system we use is Red Hat 6.8, I believe. We're just about to go to version 7. We supply the operating systems for you. We have an amazing agreement with Red Hat. We supply all the updates for the Red Hat as well, actually coming from Clearswift repositories opposed to Red Hat's repositories. So we're able to update those systems without the fear of an update breaking our products. So they are fully tested before being released to the world. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, here we go. What is the delay on delivery of mail? That's a great question. So the secure email gateway and the ARgon server and the secure exchange gateway has the ability, it is a high throughput firewall which can process over 100,000 messages an hour per server. Bear in mind you can put multiple email gateways or ARgon servers together in order to increase that throughput and the resilience itself. So the actual delay is almost is the same as if we were scanning it anyway. Because we're breaking the data down in order to inspect it and then apply policy, at the point of breaking that data down, we can then do the redaction. So there is no additional delay. Okay, does your management tool allow management of specific suites, say SWG or SEG only? So yes, the management tool it's a single UI that will only appear with a Clearswift product. We can use things like syslog to export data to a centralized management. So we have that ability to do decentralized management as well. Can it be used as a spam blocker by policy? Yes, the secure email gateway has a integrated anti-spam technology utilizing the standard mechanisms from your URL detection. We can remove URLs for malware, phishing, viruses, the body of the message itself. We can do your SPF records, we can do the DKIM, the release in February, so not that long. We'll do the DMARC, which is required for British local governments as well as central governments. BAT-V, grey listing, we are constantly increasing the anti-spam capabilities. Unfortunately, I've missed most of the seminar. Could we please email me a link? This has been recorded, so we can make that available through Foursys for anyone who's missed this session. Does this have an alerting system, i.e. email to address? Absolutely. All the solutions have not only built-in notifications around the actual system itself, but also whenever a policy is broken, you have that ability to educate the user, administrators. We can actually hook into Active Directory and identify who their manager is and actually move decision-making to the managers as opposed to the IT team, because actually sometimes the managers will have a better understanding of whether that data should be allowed or not. But yes. Does it assist in DLP? Absolutely. So one section I didn't cover in this session is the ability to hook into, again, databases. We can use pre-built-in lists of PII, PCI data, confidential information, and we can use a combination of Perl expressions, regular expressions, real data. So the hook into a database means that we can actually look at real data. So a user, a person, their address, their telephone number. And if we see more than one instance of that leaving the organization via email, via web, then we can either block the whole communication. That generally doesn't help the situation. But what we can do is actually redact the text itself. So we can actually rewrite that communication, like say, regardless of whether it's email, web, we can then replace it with stars. Now this isn't just a sort of plaster over that data. We actually rewrite it so it's not possible to re-engineer that data to look at the real data again. So DLP is built in pretty much to the systems, and again we have that ability to have a single policy for DLP that's then applied across multiple boundaries. So yes, the DLP prevention policies and controls are, this is basically Clearswift's bread and butter. We were a DLP solution in the 90s, but DLP didn't really exist at the time. So utilizing our deep content inspection engine enables us to really understand what is that data. Another solution we have that I again didn't cover in the seminar is the endpoint. So we actually have the ability to look at data in use and data at rest to be able to identify what DLP data is where within the organization, within the laptops, the desktops, the network shares, and we can actually do full scan on the network to understand where is that sensitive information. It is a key tool that we're utilizing for GDPR readiness as well, so that we can understand who has access to what private data, and we actually, within this tool, the Critical Information Protection Server, has the ability to move that data into a central, secure repository as well. Can the web gateway be used to block some IP addresses? Absolutely. The web gateway can block IP addresses. We have the ability within the web gateway to look at the URL. We can look at the IP address it's connecting to. Even if those URLs and the IP addresses are acceptable, when we pull the data down or upload the data, we can then apply another policy to say yes or no, or we can redact that information if it's uploading or downloading. One of the a very cool approach is if you're using a reverse proxy, for example, we can actually redact the text that's been stolen, shall I say, but the user just gets hashes where we've redacted it as it's leaving the organization. So the hacker thinks that they've stolen a lot of data. In actual fact, they've stolen nothing. Nearly there. Okay, so can the DLP apply to desktop level to reduce risk of? Absolutely. So as I say, we have controls over USB, whether it's your iPhone, your Android phone, your Windows phone, a normal USB device. We can look at the data as it's being copied over, and using the same policy that you have for email or web, regardless of whether it's secure email gateway, secure exchange gateway, ARgon, they all talk to each other. And so our endpoint solution, the SIP server, has that ability to scan the text as it's being copied over and identify when a potential data leakage is occurring and stop it. We can have policy driven, so we can say, right, that has to be encrypted, and we can encrypt it on the fly as required. I believe I've answered all these questions, but please let me know if I haven't. Okay, so to sum up, we have the technology to simplify the threats and not impede business. That is the key message that Clearswift have. And if you would like further information, please contact Foursys. We can do a demonstration. We can look at your website. We can look at some of that risk around data harvesting. I can even put some of that data through our system to show you the revision history risk as well, and so be able to show the true value of the secure email gateway or web solution. Oh, I do have another question. Thank you. Can you use the encryption of USB to distribute data securely to non-members of the organization? So the encryption mechanism we're using is a simple password. So you could share that password to non-organization users. Absolutely. So, if there are no other questions, I just wanted to thank you very much for your time. As I say, please get in touch with Foursys. If you have any further questions, if you would like to see a recording of this session, please contact Foursys. We have Victoria McCree's details there, and we'll be more than happy to supply the printer a copy of the recording and actually answer any further questions. Thank you very much for your time.